How's it going, my dudes? Welcome back to another video. So I messed around with quite a couple of CELTIE teams, and I think I have just finally settled on one that I really enjoy. So this is kind of like a mixture between what some people call the win-rotate team. So the idea is exactly the same. You want to cast as many skills as you can within a short period of time by bouncing skill gauge between your Unit 2 and Unit 3, so as to eventually pump a lot of skill gauge back to CELTIE, and therefore CELTIE can then cast a lot of skills along the way. So for this build, there are three things that I would like to talk about. Okay, so number one is the choice of armament. I am using the halberd over here, which is the current event armament. And I think this is a perfect fit for CELTIE because as your combo goes up, the skill damage that you gain increases as well. So this armament is a perfect armament for teams that revolve around combos and have way too much attack power to begin with. So for example, for this team, I have a lot of attack power coming from Vyron. I have more attack power coming from CELTIE herself, a good mix of attack and skill damage from Kohane, and even more attack from Shioe herself. So in order to maximize your DPS as much as possible, I think it's preferable that you stick with a good mix of attack and skill damage. So you might be wondering, right, why am I using Vyron? Why am I not using Mura? So there are two reasons. Number one, I want to reduce the range that CELTIE has to just close to the boss, which is where Vyron comes in. And secondly, I think for this comp, it is quite important that you have a penetration unit so that you can weave in through the boss and the ads very effectively. And the third thing that I want to talk about is Cran. So I've not talked about Cran before other than her banner showcase. I don't think anyone really uses her, but I think she has some good utility in this current team. So let's take a look at what she does, right? Her skill itself grants levitate, so that's not really a big deal because we are using her with Shioe, and Shioe also has levitation, so a skill is not such a big deal for us. But let's take a look at one of her ability in particular. Whenever a skill is activated by other units, okay, so that's what this means by other units. So basically, if Sushi or Kohane use their skills, Cran would then gain, for the first 10 times, 10% to skill gauge. So this is very powerful for stacking a lot of skill gauge. And yes, you can definitely use Mew. I think Mew is pretty effective as well. And this is Mew, so if you take a look at ability here, when a combo reaches 30, you gain 6% to skill gauge. However, in order for you to obtain 100% worth of skill gauge, you will need to achieve 500 combo. That's a little bit hard to reach, especially if I'm a full auto player. I don't really like to play manual. So the AI is going to be really stupid all the time, and it's very difficult for you to achieve 500 combos unless you run manually. So in this sense, I think Cran is going to be a little bit better for auto players just because she gives up to 100% skill gauge very easily. Okay, and without further ado, let's take a look at the team in action. So I will be doing this on pups. I generally prefer to run with pups because honestly, I think if you clone any team, it's always going to be strong. So even if your team is not as effective as something else, as long as you clone it, it's going to be more effective that way. So yeah, there's a little bit of confounding effect when playing with friends in that sense. Okay, so for today's Let's Play style, I think I'm just going to let you guys watch the run. It's very hard for me to describe what's happening, but do take note, okay, very importantly, that this is actually one of my better runs. The best way for this team to work is if someone runs a Jester and you just lock the boss over there, because this team uses Kohane and Shioe, and these two units really rely very heavily on their targets just standing still so that you can achieve a lot of combos that way, and that's very important in building combos for this team. But let's say if you are facing like Crest Serpent, who is just standing there all the time, this team is going to be super powerful. So truthfully, this team is still very strong. So there are some pub runs where I randomly break my combos, and that should eat very heavily into your DPS because CELTIE relies very heavily on combos. But one way or another, I do not know why, but my DPS seems to always keep up, and I'm usually doing quite a lot of overall DPS. And there you go, 400 combos. We have successfully maxed out our halberd. So the next time we use our skill is going to be really powerful, and in fact this is the 4th time CELTIE is using her skill. We did almost 6 million damage, and we eventually finally break our combo over here. But that's not really a problem. So the lifespan of this team is about 4 casts of CELTIE's skill, and that is taking into consideration that you don't miss any of your skills on Unit 2 and Unit 3. Basically, all your combo hitting skills need to go off and land on the mark. But of course, the more the merrier, so if you manage to land extra combos on, let's say, the ads or maybe the cup itself, then good for you. You're going to achieve a lot more combos that way. And more combos means faster skill gauge boosting, and therefore you can throw more of CELTIE's skills and increase your overall DPS that way. Okay, but even though this team is fun and all, yes, Cran works really well here. I really like using Cran. As you can see, our skill gauges are flying really high. But I still have to be honest with you guys. I still feel that the Jester team is going to be a lot stronger. You may refer to the free-to-play comp that I built like a couple of days ago, or just a variation of it. So as long as you have a Jester, I think your runs are going to be a lot more stable, which is more important because if you're going to be running pups, you really need to control the boss as much as you can. If not, you will encounter a lot more failed runs. So at least that's what I experienced so far. Without a Jester, my win rate is really a little bit lower lower, it's a little bit more noticeable. Anyway, that'll be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel. Subscribe for more World Flipper content. This has been free to play, by the way, and as always, I will see you in the next video.